What is up, y'all? It is your boy Winston Wolf. I'm back. I just want to do a quick review. So I did a review of the first episode of The Last of Us last night, but I was under the influence of Benadryl. So if it sounded like I suffered a massive head injury, no, it was just the pink stuff. Um, Let me just redo this. The Last of Us episode 1. As soon as it started, if you played the game, you're in familiar territory, and I liked it. I like that it was exactly like the game, and I don't like when people say, "Oh, well, I don't want to see an exact copy." Blah blah blah. Shut up. Everybody has something that they want to see in live action, whether it be a comic book, whether it be a cartoon, another video game, any of that stuff. And you want to see how it would translate. You want that story. That's why you fell in love with it. You don't want it changed. Of course, some things have to change, to have it live action, for the writers to justify their paychecks, etc. That type of stuff. But, with this, I was totally into it because I'm like, oh my God, that's just like the game. This is great. This is great. It's great to see it live action. But then, and I don't know if maybe I don't remember, because it's been a long time since I played the game. I bought the original one and then I bought the remaster for PS4. I don't, and I plan on getting the remaster for PS5, just not part two. And I don't know if after, when they do the 20 years later, if that's, I remember the whole scenery, the way it looked, but I don't remember it being that boring. And I don't know if it's the fact that when you're playing the game, you're controlling it, you're in it. So it's a totally different experience than sitting back and just being a spectator. Because obviously playing the game, controlling everything, you're going to be more invested, you're going to be more into it. I don't know if it was that. I don't know if maybe I was just high every time I played the game, and once we skipped to the 20 years later, it was just more fun than it actually was. But going by this show, if that's what the game was, that no, this is the actors they got, except for the Mandalorian, are terrible. I can't be the only one that's thinking this. I can't be. I can't be the only one. Everybody else, I think, has been sadly cast. And I loved, what was it, Fringe? So to see the chick from Fringe in there, I was like, oh, she's working. Good, cool. And she used to look good in Fringe. I mean, I know they got to ugly her up for this and everything, but I don't know. She's aging like bread in a gallon of milk. She ain't. But even her, she's not doing a good job. The little girl, I understand everybody from Game of Thrones. They loved her scenes. She's a little girl cussing people out, yada yada. That's sweet, awesome. But that was Game of Thrones. This isn't Game of Thrones. And I don't know if they did any. They had to have done some kind of chemistry screen test with the Mandalorian and the little girl. And I don't know what they saw. And granted, this is early in the story. If you played the game, and I'm going to get to this. If you played the game, you know that when they first meet, they're not clicking. So it takes a while. That's a part of the beauty of the game. Is before you know it, when you've been playing the game for like a week or whatever, you notice they go from barely talking or Joel giving the girl like a one-word answer just real quick with her, and then they start chit-chatting as they talk. They're building a bond. And that's one thing that I really loved about the game, because as you're putting time in it, you see their relationship grow. And I thought that was great. So I don't know if it's because this is early on in the show and we're just not seeing those scenes where they clicked, but they just really, I don't see the chemistry. I don't. And even when two people hate each other, you can see chemistry. Think about Thor and Loki, Tom Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth. Even when they hated each other, they still have some kind of chemistry there. But taking it back to playing the game, I was about to call some people and say, yo, are you watching The Last of Us? This is when I was hype watching it, with the first 23 minutes, I think it was. Because once it got past that, it was a slow decline into boredom. But I was thinking about calling some people, and I was like, oh, wait, okay, this person is an Xbox head. They've never played the game. I was going to call my old girlfriend, because she was really big up on HBO shows before they got totally trashed. And I was about to say, hey, you watching The Last of Us? And I was like, oh, she's going to probably just remember that was a game that I played when we were together. And she's probably going to be like, oh, I don't know anything about this, this video game. I don't know anything about the story. I'm not going to be interested in it. So I started to think, I was like, okay, this really appeals primarily to the people that played the game. Because people that don't play the game, you've seen post-apocalyptic scenes, scenarios, all this that have been done a whole lot better. So if you're just watching this without that connection to the game or having played the game, you're not going to have that built-in, tether to it like the people who played the game. So I wonder what people who don't know anything about this thought about it. I can't imagine that they were overwhelmed with it. Because even me, as somebody that loved the game and was looking forward to this, even though I knew there was going to be things I didn't like, I knew there was going to be, the way HBO, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of their shows suffer from people wanting to put their own politics in it, their own worldviews and everything, and that's why these shows have fallen off so drastically for HBO. But I knew there was going to be that stuff in there, and I knew I wasn't going to like it. But even so, I was like, okay, I want to see this. I want to see what kind of effort, what The Last of Us, because they've been talking about doing a movie of it for years. So I just was curious about it. Anybody else? I don't, you got the Book of Eli, you got The Road, you got these other movies that are just far superior. So they're going to have to compete with that. And not seeing any kind of villain for this, except for, the military or whatever it is, and seeing, one person get infected by, some of the fungus, and really just trying to look scary. And that's another thing I hate about modern horror movies is like, they're like, okay, you're infected. We're going to put like a little bit of pale makeup on you. And then you just try to look crazy and scary. That's what they did with this old lady. If you didn't see it, old lady gets infected with the fungus. And she's got a couple little tentacles coming out of her mouth with incredibly bad CGI. It wasn't good. But that was it. You really got no villain. You got no main threat in there. So you pretty much had to have played the game or be familiar with that story to know what's coming. Again, if you just went in dry, pause. Always spit on your hand if you're going to go in dry. But if you're going in dry, pause. You're just going to be like, wait, what? You might not pay attention to them talking about this fungus and might not think that that's a big, huge part of the story, but it is. So a lot of people are going to have to go back to the beginning and be like, oh, I didn't catch when this person, okay. So for the people, again, that never played the game, this is going to be somewhat confusing to them. I mean, they could probably put two and two together, but even then, if you have to think that hard, like, wait a second, so the guy talking about this earlier on in the show could be why this old lady is doing this, because you don't see the old lady get infected by the fungus spores in the air or whatever. It's just, like I said, it's built towards people that have played the game, and I just don't like how they're setting this up. I feel like if they were going to do it this way, they should have did what a lot of shows do to get everybody from Jump Street. Put out 2 episodes, or make the first episode movie length. I think it was longer than an hour, but it didn't. If it was longer than an hour, they didn't get much in there. They didn't really accomplish much in storytelling to me. This just seems like they're gonna drag this out a lot longer than it needs to be. Just to say, hey, we're back, we're HBO, we have a hit show. No, you guys haven't had a good show since, what, Sopranos? First 7 seasons of Game of Thrones, 6 seasons? Nah. I haven't watched House of Dragon, so I don't want to hear anybody like, have you watched House of Dragon? No, I'm waiting till I'm able to smoke again. Then I'm gonna marathon House of Dragons, okay? But Last of Us Episode 1, I just feel 0 to 10 dog bone rating. I give it... And only because I played the game and I was interested in the first 23 minutes. Because I looked at the time when I paused it and I was like, okay, we're 23 minutes into it. I give it a 3. And that's not a good 3. That's based off of me just liking the game and me liking the actor that plays the Mandalorian. That's it. Don't think the little girl is a good choice. So far, they could surprise me, because the characters they end up developing. But right now, I don't like any of the casting. I like 0 of the other casting. Although Joel's daughter, Tandy Newton's, whatever her name is, the chick that was in Gridlock with Tupac and Tim Roth, Um, she was good. She was good. You could tell she's going to be a big star. But besides that, the acting has really brought this down. I don't know. Wasn't impressed.